Hi guys. Right. Guys, let's get going. Let's get going. Let's get going. Fantastic. Hi, welcome. Good evening, Akosi Asante. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. So today we are going to be talking about cardiovascular diseases and what brings them and what makes them so dangerous. Yes, what brings the cardiovascular diseases and what makes them so dangerous. Guys, welcome to my live. My name is Dr. Felix Ifo. I am a neuropharmacologist and a toxicologist. I'm gonna try my best to come on live every single day, educating my people about the health struggles that we face most of the time. Cardiovascular diseases are something that is basically afflicting the Black community a lot. And, cardiovascular diseases is, I think, the most. We up. Guys, keep tapping on the heart. Keep tapping on the heart so that more people can come up. Keep tapping on the heart. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe so that you will be one of the first people to see when I come on live. Cardiovascular diseases, cardiovascular health. Now I have my beautiful model here. Let me use my model to help me with the lesson that I'm gonna do today. Yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. Are you guys excited for today? By God and your teaching, I'm really good. Oh, I love that. I love that. So let me take the beautiful heart that I have here. Guys, can you guys see me? Can you guys see me? I'm trying to keep up. I think my thing is late. My live is late here on my tablet. So I'm trying to get it to be. Yes. So let's see. I want more people to come so that we can start. Guys, share it to a brother, share it to a friend. Let's talk about the cardiovascular health and then diseases. Share it to a friend, share it to a brother. Let's get more people here. I want to start, but I don't want less people here and then I have to start again, So the more people we have here, the best it is, so that if I'm starting, then I am starting. Let's get more people here. We have 10 people. I think we can do better. We have 12 people. Okay, now let's start. Let's start with a very simple anatomy of the heart. Okay. Now the heart is one of the most important organs of the human body, and its role is to help pump blood across your whole body. Now, it is such an important organ because without the heart, your connective tissue, which is your blood, will not be able to transfer nutrient, water, and oxygen to the rest of your body. So without this piece of organ, quite important, we will not be able to be existing. You guys will not have the ability to be watching me right now, and we will all be unalived right now. So the heart is arguably the most important organ in the human body. Arguably. Now, if you open the heart up, if I was to open your heart up, you will see that inside the heart there are chambers, right? Now, so in a human being, the heart is around this area. The left part of the thoracic cage, you will see the heart here. And that is why your doctor, when he or she is using a stethoscope, they start listening to your heart around this area. Okay? Now, there are 4 chambers inside the heart, and I will not go too much into details, but we have 4 chambers. We have the right atrium, which is here, and then we have the right ventricles, and then we have the left atrium, and then we have the left ventricle. Now, you don't need to know all these names, and I'm not going to go into too much details, but I just wanted to start with a bit of anatomy, right? The heart is a muscle, right? The heart is a muscle. But unlike the skeletal muscles, the structure of the heart muscles are a bit different, and they contain a lot of mitochondria. Now, the reason why the heart contains a lot of mitochondria is the mitochondria is your energy factory of your cell. So we can all anticipate, or we can all predict why the heart is full of mitochondria, the heart muscles, because it constantly needs ATP production, because it needs the energy to be pumping. Now, how many of you guys know that the heart does not need the brain to pump? The heart is an automated system, because without even input from the brain, it can beat by itself. That is why when you're sleeping and your brain does not have any impact on your heart still beats. Your brain can modulate. Modulate means it can make it go up in terms of like your heart rate, or it can make it come down. And this part of the brain that does this is what we call the pons in the medulla oblongata in the brain stem. You don't need to know all these details. But essentially what I'm trying to get you to understand is the fact that the human heart can beat by itself. And that is why when a person has a brain dead, or when a person has an accident and they die, and if we get their heart out fast enough, this heart will not stop beating. If we put it on ice, there can be a transplant. If we preserve it really well, the heart can be transplanted to the next person, because there is what we call SA node and AV node. These are certain type of like electric generators that basically give the heart muscles their electric impulses to be able to contract and to be able to squeeze blood out, and blood so that the blood can actually go into the lungs for oxygenation to occur, or go into the whole systemic circulation for the oxygenated blood to go into the rest of the body for oxygenation and respiration to occur. Okay, so hi Afia. So basically what I'm trying to say is the fact that the human heart is one of the most sophisticated systems, and the reason why it has to be able to beat by itself is because without it being able to be by itself, if your brain was to control your heart, what if your brain actually, like when you're sleeping, it means that your heart will stop beating? No, your heart still beats, because whilst the brain is sleeping, their heart is still working. Whilst the rest of the body is still sleeping, your heart is still working. And that is why this piece of organ here needs particular attention, because it never stops, it never rests. It never stops, it never rests. And so if anything, one of the organs that we need to pay extreme attention to, a lot of people pay extreme attention to their sexual organ because that's what brings them pleasure. But unless this one is healthy, unless this one is beating, the same sexual organ that you are very passionate and very careful about, it wouldn't work. So without this working, forget about your pleasure. Without this working, forget about anything that you like. All right. Without this working, your favorite job, your partner that you love so much, it wouldn't work. And a lot of people take care of their partners, take care of their private parts, take care of every other thing apart from their heart, and they neglect it because a lot of people don't even realize that they have a heart. A lot of people don't even realize that they have a heart until they start having palpitation, or until their heart starts giving up on them. And so it is extremely important that we learn how the heart can be happy and how the heart can be unhappy, and how if your heart is unhappy, then there is wahala, there is a problem. Okay. So when we talk about the cardiovascular system, the heart is part of the cardiovascular system and probably the most important. Then you have the blood vessels, which is part of the cardiovascular system. And then we have the blood, which is the tissue, the connective tissue, and is part of the cardiovascular system. Now, what are some of the things that makes the heart, can have an impact on the heart and make the heart either stronger or weaker? We have the brain. I said it earlier on. The brain can make the heart beat faster or beat slower. And then we have the kidneys. The kidneys are a strong regulator of the heart because your adrenal glands can actually produce they can produce certain hormones that can impact your heart function. The first one is aldosterone, which basically maintains the equilibrium of sodium and potassium. So when you have imbalance of sodium and imbalance of an excretion of, when you have sodium being retained and potassium being excreted, you retain water, right? Because wherever there is sodium, there's water following it. And if you retain water, guess what? Your blood volume is going to go up, and that is hypertension basically. And that is why, certain drugs are given to target the aldosterone levels not being, so that it doesn't elevate itself. So aldosterone will impact your heart. Apart from that, hormones like your angiotensin, that is why we have angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. Angiotensin, what it does is when it's actually elevated, it is going to constrict your blood vessels. Constrict means it's going to narrow your blood vessels, because that's exactly what renin does. Angiotensin 2 does. It just basically, constrict your blood vessels, and so that your pressure in your heart will have to increase. Your pressure in your blood has to increase so that it moves faster. Now, one will ask, why is it that these hormones are there, and then when they go up, we have hypertension, and then when they're regulated, we don't have hypertension? One thing that you need to understand is the fact that you have angiotensin levels go up and you have aldosterone levels go up, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were not meant to be there. They were meant to be there, but it's dysregulated, because without you having angiotensin 2 being converted from angiotensin 1 and aldosterone levels going up, if you were to go into a situation of when you needed to run away from somewhere, then your body will not be able to respond. Your fight or flight system is what actually activates these hormones to be elevated. And so it is extremely important that they are there. However, when you are not under any danger and they are still there, that is where you have hypertension. So I've given you some of the 2 reasons why your blood pressure will go up, right? So because the kidneys regulate your heart, they can actually regulate your blood vessels. And so then if they regulate your blood vessels, indirectly, they are also regulating and having an impact on your heart. Apart from that, your adrenal glands can produce what we call adrenaline. Adrenaline can directly impact the heart rate, making the heart rate either go up or go down. So if you have higher levels of adrenaline, your heart rate is gonna go up, and if your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure also goes up. And adrenaline will bind to what we call the beta cells, beta adrenergic cells, which are going to increase the rate at which your heart beats, and they will beat faster. Right? Your heart will beat faster. So far, we've given you three hormones that are released by your kidneys that basically impact your heart's function: aldosterone, angiotensin 2, adrenaline. Okay? Now, what can you do to sort of like decrease these? Now we are targeting the kidneys, right? Because if your kidney is making more of these, what can you do to make sure that your adrenaline levels are decreased? What can you do so that your aldosterone levels are decreased? What can you do so that your angiotensin levels are also not elevated? Now, one thing that you need to understand is the fact that cortisol will actually have a role to play in all these hormones levels being dysregulated. And cortisol is basically what will basically make you stress, is your stress hormone. So when you have elevated levels of cortisol, when you're stressed, or when you're in situations of disturbance, or when you're in situations where your homeostasis, like your mental health, is being impacted, your cortisol levels are going to go up. And as your cortisol levels go up, your adrenaline levels are going to go up as well. And so your kidney function is going to be impaired. Stress will release a lot of hormones, cortisol, that will basically impact your whole physiology. Now, as cortisol go up, adrenaline goes up, and all these kind of things is going to basically make you feel like you are in a place of danger. Yeah? There are so many people that are not in danger, but their body makes them feel like they are still in danger. And when you're in danger, how your body perceives this is that there is danger, so you have to run away. The moment you're not able to turn off your cortisol over a long period of time, that is when hypertension actually starts. Because see, when cortisol levels are up and adrenaline levels are up, you're gonna have your blood pressure high. Now, over a long period of time where your blood pressure is also high, guess what? Because your heart is working extremely hard to pump the blood across your body, it will grow because the muscles are working. And as they are pumping, trying their best to sort of like get the blood out, eventually their muscles, they're going to grow. Just like if you're working out your biceps or whatever, it's going to grow. Now, you see, unlike the biceps, when you're working them out, that you want them to grow, when it comes to the human heart, we do not want them to grow, because the moment they start growing, we actually lose their efficacy we lose their effectiveness, how effective they are at beating, because we don't want their heart to grow. We don't necessarily want their heart muscles to grow. Now, when your heart starts growing, there is a big problem. When your heart starts growing, there is a big problem. It means that it cannot beat and it cannot push blood across your body more efficiently and effectively. But you will see how, for example, if you're trying to press, you're trying to push something with force, eventually, just like every muscle, it will start increasing in size. And when it start increasing in size, then you are going to be in a problem. Yeah? That is the kidneys impact on your heart. Now, I've told you already that the brain actually impacts the heart as well, but we're not going to go too much into details there. When you perceive a danger, your brain basically sends signals to your heart, and your heart starts beating a lot faster so that you can actually escape that danger, right? So your brain impacts your heart as well. Now let's go to the liver. The liver impacts the heart. How? Because the liver is what digests fat. Okay. Now imagine you have high LDL levels. What essentially happens is that your blood gets thickened because your LDL levels will be taking away from your cholesterol, from your liver. Some will be stored in the liver, and some will be roaming about so that they can be stored elsewhere in your fat cells. Now, guess what? If you have high levels of them, your liver is not going to be able to store them, and then they will have to be roaming about. And as they're roaming about, your blood is going to get thicker. So it's like putting oil, a lot of oil in your blood. As your blood gets thicker, imagine what your heart is going to have to do. It is not going to be able to push the blood, because the blood is, is less viscous, right? The blood is not as thin and not as fluid, right, as it's supposed to be. So then it is going to pump it out, but it needs more pressure to pump it out because it's very thick, full of, low density lipoproteins. And that is why people that have also high LDL levels and low LDL levels actually end up having elevated blood pressure measurements because the blood is thicker. Now, apart from that, the reason why your LDL levels are so dangerous is because when your LDL levels are raised, and what betide you also have high, high glucose levels, they can make your blood vessels brittle and they can cause damage inside your blood vessels because high sugar levels can actually be dangerous to the cells. And as they make wound inside your blood vessels, those LDL levels can actually deposit. Those fat, those lipids can deposit inside the wounded sort of like wall of your blood vessels. And there's the deposit there. You also remember that the calcium is also roaming in your bloodstream. And as calcium deposit on top of the fat, you have what we call atherosclerotic plaques, which is a mixture of a whole bunch of things: calcium, LDL, platelets, and all those kind of things. And then they calcify. And then imagine if your heart is trying to pump blood through blood vessels through tubes that are half blocked, it is going to struggle so much. And then that's how your heart gets bigger. So, Nana Dinkra, you want me to repeat how the heart gets bigger? When your heart has to beat a lot stronger over a long period of time, it's like it's overworking. It can grow. When your heart is beating a lot harder because there is a tube in your blood vessels, some of them are blocked, it cannot push the blood with the same pressure as if there was no blockage inside your blood vessels. So as it's trying to do that, right, it has to work harder. And as it's working harder, it is going to get bigger. It's going to grow. Okay? Yes. So I've given you the 4 organs. Did I say 4? No, 3 organs that can impact your blood pressure. Now let's go to the 4th one. Your PTH levels. If you have parathyroid hormones levels being high, those can also increase. Those can also impact your heart. Now, how does PTH levels impact your heart? It can impact your heart by going to the blood, going to the bones, releasing hormones, releasing the calcium. And then as calcium levels actually come to your bloodstream at elevated levels without being controlled, they're going to get your heart to contract much stronger. And as strong as they're contracting, your heart is going to, overwork. And also your blood vessels are going to be constricted. And as your blood vessels constrict because there's high levels of calcium, guess what? Your heart is going to work harder, and then it is going to grow. So you have the brain, the kidneys, the liver, the thyroid, which can directly have an impact on your heart function and your heart growth. So it is very, very important that we pay attention to all these organs, because a lot of people think that the fact that they have a heart issue is because their heart is not working well. Most of the time, your heart has nothing to do with even the fact that it's having palpitation, but that's because there are certain organs that are having an influence on it. For example, if you have anxiety, you're going to have palpitations. That is because your brain is having a modulation on your heart. If your thyroid are not working properly, if you have hypo or hyperthyroidism, you're going to have an impact on your heart. If you have kidney issues or kidney damage, you're going to have an impact on your heart. If you have a tumor in your adrenal glands, you're going to have an impact on your heart. If you have liver damage or liver toxicity, whatever the case may be, and your liver is not being able to process your lipoproteins properly, it is going to have an impact on your heart. So most of the time, the heart is not even a troublesome organ. It is just doing pretty well by itself. And apart from that, if again, the fact that your electrolyte levels are not balanced is because your kidneys are not functioning properly. Now, if your kidneys are not functioning properly and they are excreting like potassium and maintaining sodium, like I said earlier on, you're going to have an impact on your heart. When your vitamin D levels are low, that is also going to have a massive impact on your heart health. So you see how all these things absolutely come together and have an impact on your heart. Now, let me tell you the root cause of almost all of these things that can have impact on your heart. Yeah? It is. Ladies and gentlemen, can someone guess? Can someone guess how almost all of these things that I talked about have one basic cause of them? One basic cause. Basic. The ladies and gentlemen online, can you tell me what could be the basic commoner factor for all these hormones, for all these organs that have an impact on their heart function? The communal factor. Guys, you should know this. And you guys are not tapping. You guys are not liking. Today, what's happening? What's happening today? What's happening today? You're not tapping on the heart. Nobody is tapping on the heart today. Guys, are we there or I'm just here by myself? Are we here or I'm just here by myself? I think I'm here by myself. Nobody's here. People are just sleeping. Okay. I don't think people are here. Okay, maybe I should try tomorrow. All right, guys. I don't think people are active. I'll try tomorrow on TikTok, and then let's go. Oh, so you guys are there. You're not interacting with me. I came here for that matter. I came on live here for that matter. But you guys are not interacting, so it feels like I'm talking to myself. Yeah. Vitamin D deficiency is the communal thing. Now let me break it down to you how vitamin D deficiency would actually impact every of these organs, and that is why a lot of people actually have their heart or the cardiovascular issues. Now, I almost developed a cardiovascular issue because of vitamin D deficiency. Right? Let me tell you why. So, vitamin D is one of the hormones whose receptor is present in every single cell of the human body. But guys, ladies and gentlemen, can I be completely honest with you guys? Vitamin D is the only hormone. And you know why they called it vitamin D? It is not a vitamin. It is a hormone. It is just like your aldosterone, just like your progesterone, just like your testosterone, just like all your hormones. It is not a vitamin. It is a hormone. Ladies and gentlemen, every single cell of your body contains vitamin D. From your hair follicle to your toenail. Vicky, you're late. Vicky, you're late, man. GH Beauty, yeah. Every single cell of the human body contains vitamin D hormone. Now, let me tell you guys something that you didn't know. There has been a very, very conspired agenda. Vitamin D is a hormone. Yeah. The truth of the matter is, if we talk about the fact that it is a vitamin, you're not gonna pay attention to it, because vitamins you can take it or you can leave it. It's not that deep. But if we see that it is a hormone, then it becomes more serious to you. Because if I say right now that I don't have testosterone in my body, I know that, oh my God, I'm gonna be impotent. Right? I'm gonna be impotent. If I tell you that you don't have estrogen, you know that you're not gonna be a woman anymore, because estrogen is what makes you a woman. But if I tell you that you don't have vitamin D in your bloodstream, you're not going to be like, okay. A lot of people have vitamin D deficient. They don't even take it seriously. Yes, that's the reason why you are having heart issues. That's the reason why your hair is going back. That's the reason why you don't have libido anymore. That's the reason why you're not performing well. That's the reason why you're having brain fogs. But that's not the point. The point is, I'm talking about cardiovascular issues today. And so when vitamin D was discovered and was described in the 1980s, right? That is when we discovered it. And we discovered that without that, there were rickets. And we discovered that without that, people were developing obesity. Without that, we discovered that people were having heart issues. But according to the literature, it has been reported that the reason why it was not paid extreme attention to as a hormone is because if you were to pay attention to that hormone and you were to optimize the levels of that hormone, you wouldn't fall sick. And so if you're not falling sick, and that therefore then the model of business, certain people's businesses would not work. Yeah. If you're not falling sick, a lot of business models are going to fail. And so that is why allegedly it is called hormone. It's called vitamin and not hormone. Now think about this. Also, a lot of people are very, 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 very confused behind the IU measurement. So they hide behind, 1,000 IU. So in your head, it sounds like a lot, right? In your head, it sounds like a lot. 1,000 IU. I'm taking 1,000 IU of vitamin D. But if I told you that is 25 microgram, which is basically absolutely nothing. So then they converted it to 1,000 IU. So it sounds so high. So that you would think you're taking vitamin D, but you're not taking vitamin D. Then you will fall sick either way. So that the business model actually continues and it grows. Why is it that every other sort of like hormone or vitamin, we use the terms milligram, we use the term microgram, we use the term grams, but when it comes to vitamin D, for some bizarre reason, we are using international unit. Come on, guys. Sometimes you just have to think about certain things. Why are we calling it international unit? International unit of what? International, it doesn't mean anything. That IU thing doesn't mean, it's just a confusion so that you do not take the correct concentration so you don't fall sick. And so someone will feel so scared. Oh my God, I can't take 10,000 international unit. What? 10,000 international unit? Oh, listen, that is even the minimum. The minimum. And by the way, what they actually use to scare you guys is, oh, it can cause kidney issues if you're taking D3. Yes, that's true. But if you're taking K2 with it, absolutely no side effect whatsoever. Now, how does vitamin D deficiency actually impact all the organs that have an impact on your cardiovascular health? I talked about parathyroid hormones. I talked about the brain. I talked about the liver. I talked about the kidneys. Okay, let's take it one by one, starting from the top. How does vitamin D deficiency actually impact the brain? When you're vitamin D deficient, you're going to have anxiety and you're going to be depressed. And a depressed brain cannot regulate the heart properly. When your brain is not functioning properly because you're depressed or you're anxious, it is going to negatively impact your heart because it is not even being able to perceive that there is no danger. Your brain is firing signals, stress signals to your brain, your heart, to say that there is danger when there is no danger. That is anxiety. That is depression. So vitamin D is the root cause of your anxiety, is the root cause of your depression, which is impacting your heart, because as your brain modulates your heart, if your brain has an issue, your heart will also have the issue. Nice. Let's now move to your thyroids. The PTH levels, when mostly of the time, when a person has vitamin D deficiency, you will see that the PTH levels also go up, parathyroid hormone. That is so that it basically compensates for the detrimental effect that the vitamin D deficiency would have on your body. And so your PTH levels will have to go up to go and call calcium from your bloodstream, from your bones, so that your body can function, because without calcium, you would actually unalive yourself. Without calcium, you would basically unalive yourself. Without calcium, you would basically unalive yourself. Vicky, I made you a moderator. So imagine your vitamin D levels are low. The other second in command, which is your thyroid, would have to go to your bones to go and call calcium to come, because the first in command is not there. It is like president and vice president. Your vitamin D3, your hormone D3 is your hormone that is supposed to be taking care of all the regulation of calcium. However, because you're not exposed to the sun, guess what? The levels are going to go low. And if the levels go low, your body has put certain things in place, certain vice president in place, so that then calcium levels are not going to go down completely, so that you won't unalive yourself. And so vitamin D3 levels go down, PTH takes over, it goes and brings your blood, goes and bring calcium from your bones and come and dump in your bloodstream. Now, unfortunately, because your PTH levels are not meant to be regulating your calcium, they will just dump in them there without telling them where to go. And that would also lead to your heart contracting much strongly. And then it will cause constriction of your blood vessels. And that is how it impacts your heart. Yeah? That is how it impacts your heart. Are we following? So just imagine I've given you how vitamin D impacts the brain, and then brain impacts the heart. How vitamin D impacts the parathyroid hormone, which then impacts the heart. Now let's go to the heart itself. Did you guys know that a lot of people would do their blood works and they would check their blood vitamin D levels? And by the way, your blood vitamin D levels are not reflecting the vitamin D levels that are in your fat cells that are stored in your body, in your periphery, in your tissues. It does not measure that. And so a lot of people will do their blood works and the range is 50 to 250. They will be like, 60, and they'll be like, oh, my blood vitamin D levels are in normal range. It means that there is none in your tissues stored. Because if that level is what is roaming in your bloodstream, It means you have none stored in your tissues. And if none is stored in your tissues, you're going to be obese, because vitamin D is what is regulating fat metabolism in your fat cells. Vitamin D is also, let me shock you guys, vitamin D is also found in the muscles. Before, we didn't know that vitamin D is what also regulates muscle function. So your heart, actually, the muscles in your heart, they store vitamin D directly themselves. And so when there is no vitamin D in your heart muscles, in your myocardiocytes, that means that the myocardiocytes are not going to have a regulator to tell them how to beat. And so you would start to have palpitations. Apart from the fact that high calcium levels are going to cause palpitations, but low vitamin D is going to cause palpitations, because the commander-in-chief that will tell your heart muscles how to beat properly and smoothly and nicely and synchronizing with your body will not be there to tell it. And that is why, for optimal health, to prevent all-cause mortality, is when your vitamin D levels are about 200, that is the optimum. When the range is between 50 and 250, it has to be about 200. Because I even try to push it to like 220. Because at that point, I know in my tissues, they are enough. In my heart, they are enough. I know that my body is stored enough. Because the blood works does not measure the amount that is in the tissues. But your tissues need them the most. If you go and check your blood vitamin D levels and your levels are like 60, that is basically enough for you to survive. That means that your body is struggling, even though it's within the normal range. And that is the trick that a lot of people have actually fallen victim of, because like, oh, my vitamin D levels are okay, they are fine. Yes, but that's why you have hypertension, because there is none in your heart. That is why you're obese, because there is none in your fat cells to actually regulate metabolism and actually make your fat cells release the old fatty acids that have been stored, so that you get new fresh ones coming. And that is why a lot of people, when the moment they start taking vitamin D3, K2, guess what? They absolutely lose weight. They lose weight. Guys, am I teaching or I'm not teaching? Am I teaching? Are you guys learning something new? Are you guys learning something? And by the way, this kind of information, I kid you not, 99.8% of doctors in the whole world don't even have an idea of the things I'm talking about. Thank you, Anahima. Yes. 99% of the people, of doctors, nurses, healthcare practitioners, have no idea. Who was on my live yesterday when one young doctor like that, young lady, right? I was talking about vitamin D, and I don't know what pressed her ego, because of how she's been trained by the system not to look at the root cause, but to look at the surface. And I don't blame her. Even me. That's how I was trained. That's what the curriculum, if you go to science school, that's what you've been told. But unless you start doing your digging, unless you actually the truth of the matter is, the level of understanding that I have. Oh, see, Vicky, the truth is, a lot of them don't know. I'm not lying to you. A lot of them don't know. The beautiful thing about me is the fact that, you see, I make the science. I am the science. If you like, Google my name. I have so many scientific papers. I've published so many scientific. I'm a scientist, actually. I'm a scientist. So what the doctors and the nurses are using to learn about the human body, I make those books. We make those books. We, the researchers. And so when I'm speaking to you, my level of understanding is like, I can actually modify a human gene and actually can modify a human cell. I can replicate your DNA. I can genetically modify your DNA. And guys, so whenever I'm, not to sort of like demean anyone's effort or whatever, but if you're the foundation of knowledge, a lot of the times when people try to argue with me, they are arguing from a place of ignorance, and I give them the grace. And if you were on my TikTok yesterday, TikTok live, one young fine doctor like that, fine lady, she came up and she wanted to debate me about the things I was talking about because she didn't know who I was. She thought I was one of those doctors that are talking about. So out of like, ego, I told her to come up. I don't know who was there. She came up with a lot of him, but she left very quiet. Because like, I make the science. I am science. I make what you actually study. Without being arrogant. With all humility. I've published about 17 or 18 scientific articles. You can Google my name. And I think a lot of people see me as a young man. So listen, I qualify to be a full-blown professor at my age with the things I've been able to achieve in science. I qualify to be that. I qualify. Oh, you Google my name, you will see my name. I'm verified on Google. You will see researcher. If you put Felix Ifa, you will see researcher. I have several papers, several scientific papers. And by the way, a lot of professors in Ghana have about 2 or 3 papers, or even 4. Yeah. I mean, even again, no disrespect towards nurses. I feel like nurses is very hands-on, but even the doctors that are supposed to know, for some reason, they don't know. They don't know. And so it's just the arrogance that comes with it that I don't like, because see, if you don't know something, say you don't know. And by the way, every single day, one thing about me is every single day I read about 3 scientific papers. So there is no question that you will ask me about the human body that I cannot answer you. There is no question. This is what I do for a living. And by the way, I also do post-mortem, investigations. So human lungs, human heart, you dissect them, investigate what killed them and stuff like that, diseases that could have killed them and stuff like that. So imagine someone like me, and you're just, I have the toxicology background, I have the pharmacology background. You're trying to argue with me about the pathways and pathologies and stuff like that. Come on, let's be for real, all right? And that is why I, with all humility, I speak with so much conviction and so much determination, because I know what exactly I'm talking about. Because I know what exactly I am talking about. We know that, that is why we are here. Focus on us, not the ignorance. Fantastic. Now, where did I reach? The heart, right? Okay. Now, let's go to the liver. Did you know that without vitamin D levels being optimized, your fat metabolism and your fat storage are not going to happen properly? And remember that your fat metabolism is occurring in your liver, which then it will be packaged into LDLs and VLDLs and IDLs. So when you have low levels of vitamin D in your bloodstream, your fat levels are going to go up and your blood is going to get thicker, because if your fat metabolism is not happening properly, then your body will not know where to store the fats that are in excess. And so it's going to dampen it in your bloodstream. As it dampens in your bloodstream, your blood pressure will have to go up because your blood gets thicker and your heart have to pump a little harder. That is how vitamin D deficiency impacts your heart. Now let's talk about vitamin D deficiency and the kidneys. If your vitamin D levels are low, guess what? Your calcium levels are either going to be low or they're going to be high, depending on the time you catch it. So if you catch, this is the interesting thing about it. Someone will go to the hospital after a month of their vitamin D levels being low, right? And their calcium levels are going to be low. That is because your vitamin D levels your calcium levels have to drop to a certain point to trigger your parathyroid hormone to now kick in and go up. So the same person, 1 month after vitamin D levels are really low, which means calcium levels are low, they will see that the calcium levels are low. And then 3 months down the line, they will do their blood works and their calcium levels are high. And the doctor will be like, oh, you have hypercalcemia. And they will try target the calcium instead. No, the calcium is not the problem. The moment you see calcium levels high and PTH high, you should connect that is vitamin D levels that are low. The moment you give the vitamin D levels, PTH will come down, because then it doesn't have to be the one to regulate calcium. Then it comes and take over its role of calcium metabolism and calcium regulation. Now, are you guys even surprised as to why vitamin D is life? Because the only mineral, which is calcium, that your body cannot do without, and without which nothing will happen in your body, is calcium. And this calcium is regulated by vitamin D. So imagine the two most important hormone and mineral. The hormone is like the father and the son. When the father goes down, the son goes down too. Guys, please don't play with calcium. Because without calcium, you're literally gonna unalive. And what regulates this calcium is the almighty hormone D3. But then they want you to understand that it is not that important. It is not that important. So I have connected every single thing that they go hand in hand. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like the president and the vice president, they have to go hand in hand. And that is the issue with a lot of people. They are being treated for the wrong thing. Imagine being given thyroid hormone drugs for thyroid function, when indeed the problem would have actually been if your doctor ever knew the connection and ever knew the relationship, they understood the body as a whole and not in isolation. If only they checked your parathyroid hormones and it was high, and they checked for tumor and there was no tumor there, the next thing you should look for is to look at vitamin D levels. And if vitamin D levels are low and calcium levels are high, oh my God, you should make that connection and say that it is due to vitamin D deficiency. But then you will be given a drug for your thyroid hormones, thyroid function. Then that will be the wrong target. One friend of mine like this, her niece was supposed to get a surgery because they said that her thyroid hormones were up and the thyroid had to be removed. I had a conversation with her and I said, hey, can you get them to give this child a bit of vitamin D and let them spend time in the sun? The surgery was scheduled for, I think, 4 months. This child spent a lot of time in the sun, got the vitamin D levels, took some high dose vitamin D, and then they went to do that scan again, and the doctor that suggested that they should do, what happened? The thyroid is back, like it's not grown as much as it used to be. Yeah. And I was like, guys, a lot of people have removed their thyroids, done surgeries, because they didn't know the importance of vitamin D. Now, let me tell you why my TikTok is being targeted. Because there's never been any black person that has been up like a tiger, raising the awareness about vitamin D so much as like me. Because they know that if you optimize your vitamin D levels, then you're not going to have cancer. Then you're not going to have hypertension. Then you're not going to have diabetes. Then you're not going to have LDL levels being high. Then you're not going to have depression. Then you're not going to lose your hair. Then you're not going to have liver damage, liver diseases. Then you're not going to have impotence. Then you're not going to have PCOS. Then you're not going to have fibroids. Then you're not going to have insulin resistance, which is then due to diabetes. Guys, I beg you, please, let's just do an exercise. Just name me any disease that comes to mind, and let me tell you why vitamin D is the common root cause. Now, of course, when you have the foundation of the disease, and there are also other things that build upon it, you can target the third thing or the fourth thing, but the root cause is still not there. The root cause is what has triggered everything else. So you will target the protein on the surface area, but this is the root. That one, don't target it, because then if you target it, the model collapses, the business model collapses. So I want you guys to name, let's just do an exercise. Just randomly say a disease. Randomly say a disease. Let me tell you the connection it has with vitamin D. Why vitamin D is the root cause. Random. Just say random. I know we're talking about cardiovascular health, but just mention. It doesn't matter. Mention. I'm just waiting, guys. Okay. Fantastic. Gum disease or osteoporosis. Somebody said leprosy. Okay. Let's go to gum disease and or osteoporosis. Fantastic. Now think about this. Gum disease, most of the time, is due to infection, right? Infection of the gum. Right? Infection of the gum. Now, I'll give you both all the disease that you have here. Guys, hold on there. Let me explain the link with vitamin D deficiency so that we can actually go ahead, right? Now, if you look at... Okay, guys, hold on there. I'm going to go one by one so that after I go to allergies, after I finish allergies, then we can add some more. Right? Let's do the exercise. Gum disease is mostly due to sort of like bad oral health, right? Now, when you look at the gut microbiome of a lot of people that have gum disease, you will see that the oral microbiome or the oral flora is not healthy. You don't have the good bacterial levels being high. Now, guess what? When you have an infection, or when you have the bad bacteria or the bad flora go up, that is because your immune system, your immune cells that are supposed to be, cleansing your mouth, that are supposed to get rid of those bacteria or viruses or whatever the case may be, right, are not functioning properly. Now, one of the most important regulators of the immune system is vitamin D. Without vitamin D, your CD4 T cells and your natural killer cells cannot even recognize bacteria or viruses that are not good or going to be harmful to your body. And that is why people that had COVID actually died. And a lot of them, that people that died also were vitamin D deficient. Okay. Now let's go to osteoporosis. Osteo means bone, and then porosis is porous, right? It's very easy. When you don't have vitamin D levels, calcium levels are going to be low, and so your PTH levels are going to take it from your bones, and that is how you have osteoporosis. Now let's go to leprosy. Leprosy is mostly genetic, right? But think about this. It didn't start as at a place where anyone was going to, like, no one was actually born with genetic disorders. From the beginning, someone had to change a genetic component, which then led to what we call epigenetics. Now we know that when your vitamin D levels are low, your genes are not protected. And vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. So it can directly go inside your nucleus and interfere with your genes. And so those genes that are supposed to be, encoding for your limbs and your body's formation to be complete may actually be impaired. So when you are born, when you have low vitamin D levels, you're more susceptible to genetic disorders because the genes that are supposed to be expressed to protect your body and make sure that you're not passing on bad genes to your offsprings are not tightly regulated, because vitamin D, let me just call it hormone D, regulates your genes. So that's how not just leprosy, but also genetic malfunctions. All right? Genetic malfunctions. Now let's talk about sickle cell. Sickle cell, which is a genetic disorder. Okay? Think about this. How sickle cell, your cell is sickled, right? And like I said earlier on, if you were to trace it back, if you like, let's do this exercise. If you like, let's do this exercise. Google right now how vitamin D deficiency affects sickle cell. It makes the sickle cell, you will have more crises when you have vitamin D deficiency, right? Which of course it has nothing to do with you. You are not the one that actually made the epigenetic changes in you. Somehow, somewhere, your body has, due to genetic mutations, right? You have carried on this genetic mutation, which has led to the sickle cell. But like I said, hormone D can directly regulate a bunch of hormones because it is present in every single cell of the human body. Every single cell. So although you are not the one to have made the direct changes to your red blood cells being sickled, someone in your bloodline had an interference with the hormones that regulate genes, which includes vitamin D as well, which has made it so that the trait has been passed on to you, right? So think about this. The things that can directly impact your gene expression, vitamin D is one. Magnesium is also two. Magnesium is in fact needed for gene translation and gene transcription and gene translation to occur. When I go to the lab and I'm trying to do gene expression without adding magnesium to the DNA, guess what? There is not going to be any DNA transcription and DNA translation. No, magnesium is absolutely needed. So that is why. Now let's talk about Parkinson's. Parkinson's is a is a disease that actually mostly affects the what we call substantia nigra, right? And it is mostly an issue of dopamine. When dopamine levels decreased significantly in your substantia nigra, that's where the trauma and all those kind of things happen.